Good evening, everybody. It's we talking about sports. It's the Waiver Wire show for week 4.
I
I'm
love this
Roland.
new
I'm
show.
joined by Ron today. Ron, how's it going?
You know what, Roland? It's Tuesday night. You have your beer in your hand, and what else would you rather do at it's 8:30 here in Texas?
Hey, you
So
gotta you gotta get in the lab right now. That's
it's
what you're trying to do.
I mean, you're on the phone, you're on the tablet, you're on the computer, you're talking with the homies because is it midnight when the waiver wire shuts off?
I
Is it
think
like
so,
2
and I mean
a.m.,
the
something like
waivers
that?
clear around 3 in the morning. So if you're really sick
Yeah.
and you're thinking about you might not be able to get somebody on the waiver wire, you're probably waking up like around 4 or so trying to beat somebody. I have a lot of friends that are like that, or people who will just kind of just stay up and wait for
True.
waivers to clear and
We
pick
call
somebody
those
else. So,
true degens like
yeah,
us,
for sure. But
true degens. But that's I don't even have the studio lights on. It's just in the lab. I want it quiet, nobody talk, because it's the waiver wire show, and I'm excited, man. Last week, I don't know if you have the slide or not. The ones that you guys picked, the ones that we picked together, I mean, Roland, absolutely have been destroying it. I think it was
yeah,
like Tutu, Laporta, um, Rashid. I mean, we're doing very well. So hopefully week
Tank Dell.
4 goes just as
Tank
good
Dell
as
went hard.
Tank Dell. You were on that Tank Dell hype train before ESPN, before NFL came out. You were on that Tank Dell train, man. And we have another guy from the Houston squad. So we killed it in week 3. Hopefully it continues into week 4, which is what we're gonna get into tonight. So sit back, relax, and kick it with us. It's not like our regular shows rolling. We're going to give you a little 10, 15 minutes, and that's it. So we have somebody in the chat already. Thank you for watching. Edgar, Josh, I'm ready, boys.
Shout out everybody in the chat. Appreciate it. But yeah, this week probably not as strong as the weeks before. Like Ron was mentioning, there's a lot of gems to be had last week. If you're on the waiver wire, you were listening to the show and other podcasts, I'm sure mentioned some of these names, and you went in on them. You were pretty successful this past week if you put them in your lineup. So let's get to it. Like I said, probably not as big of a lineup as last week, but still some pretty good names to talk about. Ron, you want to take them through it? Take everybody through them 1 through 4 real quick?
For sure. I'm about to share on Facebook too, guys, from my own personal page. If y'all can do the same, Josh, Edgar, everybody who's watching, we appreciate it. So let's go from left to right here. We have Mr. Rookie, Mr. Ohio State Buckeye, Justin, who is not on the show today. Shout out to him because he's a huge Ohio State Buckeye fan. CJ Stroud doesn't top the list, I would say, Roland, but comes in toward the top. Then we have a Shane. We already know the story there. 70 points against the Broncos. What did he have, Roland? 3 or 4 touchdowns.
He did say he wants him to be pronounced Achan. I don't think it's Achan. It's Achan. Yeah.
Okay. Emilio, what's up, bro? Thanks for watching. Tank Dell. Yeah, Emilio, we talked about Tank Dell last week. But moving on to the OG in here, there's several rookies usually you see on the waiver wire, but Adam Thielen, Roland. When I text you on the side, you agreed to this guy. So Adam Thielen makes our list.
Yeah, written off for the most part, being traded over to Carolina with the rookie Bryce Young, but he's been showing out. I'm glad to see him on this list.
And finally, this is one I picked. This is more of a deep dive. I don't know if if you guys are in leagues where you have to spend money. This is maybe you don't even have to spend money, throw $1. This is a super crazy deep dive. I have Mims Jr. from the Broncos. It's more of a somebody gets hurt, but you want to I was going to say you want to be on him. Pause, but I caught myself. You want to be on him like the whole Tank Dell situation. If you were on Tank Dell week 3, you were way ahead of the curve there. So this is somebody who I think might have potential. Sutton's always hurt. Judy's coming off an injury. Russell Wilson has been throwing the rock all over the field. So these are our 4. We're going to go over them one by one.
And I'm glad you brought that up too, because that's kind of a theme here when we're talking about CJ Stroud. You kind of want to be a little forward-looking. You might not necessarily need him, or like in the situation of Tank Dell, if you didn't spend on him this week and he's still kind of a free agent, you're going to have to spend a lot more than you did last week. So pay attention. Hopefully some of these names do help out some of the ones that aren't maybe rostered as much. But just
Mm-hmm.
going to the first name, it is none other than Adam Thielen. He's been a perennial, fantasy starter, plug and play for the most part over in Minnesota there with Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson. But as we mentioned, he's now with Carolina. Week 2 kind of popped a little bit, got a touchdown on seven catches on 9 targets. And week 3 against Seattle with Andy Dalton probably ended up being a little bit better for the Panthers, that Bryce Young ended up sitting out. But Adam Thielen and Andy Dalton did have a good connection. 11 catches, 145 yards on 14 targets. I mean, granted, Seattle does not have the best secondary nowadays, but Adam Thielen flat out ended up with 31 points. He's rostered in about 54% of leagues, so there's a good chance that he's rostered, but in 10-man leagues, he's probably not rostered as much. I checked one of my 12-mans. He's not there.
Mm-hmm.
So Adam Thielen, Ron, you mentioned him. You threw his name into the chat.
Yeah,
are you looking to add Adam Thielen onto your roster? Is he a guy that you think is startable the rest of the year?
I mean, I don't know if he's startable and he's available. I think the percentage here is 54%. So available in 54% of the leagues. But just going off of his his numbers here, Roland, and he's clearly the wide receiver 1. I mean, don't you want a wide receiver 1 on any team, albeit, say even somebody trash like the Bears or
I mean,
that isn't doing very well?
I'll say not all targets are created equal, but I like Andy Dalton and Bryce Young more than the Bears. So I think they're good targets, Adam Thielen, to your point.
Yeah, man. So I'm gonna go over some stuff that I wrote here. So I have number 1 is, guess who he's playing this week? Minnesota. It's gonna be a revenge game. So we know what happens when players who have been with the team for a long time go back and play. They usually show out, and he's also wide receiver 1, like I mentioned. You have guys like DJ Chark, Terrence Marshall, Laviska Shenault. Those are all the other guys that are getting thrown to, and they're rejects from the Jaguars. Let's just, call it what it is. Frank Reich, bro, loves to throw the ball. Miles Sanders went over there from Philadelphia. He's not having a great year. And Andy Dalton, bro, threw it 58 times last week. He was 34 for 58. He's going against the Vikings defense, who only has 1 interception in the last 3 games. And they've given up 20 points, 34 points, and 28 points in their first 3 games. So a defense that's not very good, a secondary that's not very good. So Adam Thielen is enrolled like me. Like, okay, for example, I have guys like on my bench, like Sky Moore, Juju Smith. I would definitely start Thielen over these guys. One of my guys goes hurt. Okay, perfect situation right here, Roland, for me. I have Garrett Wilson. And he's
you're starting at this point. I think Adam Thielen is a start over Garrett Wilson. If you have that,
that's wild to say, right?
It was wild to say going into the preseason, but I think at this point, and Ron, you mentioned their matchup for week 4, but if you keep on going down the schedule, I mean, it's not that crazy. I mean, it's Detroit, Miami, a bye, Houston, Indy, Chicago, Dallas, Tennessee, Tampa. I mean, and the New Orleans. It's a pretty favorable schedule. I like Adam Thielen the rest of the year. And in that situation, I would start him over Wilson.
Cool. I like it, man. So we're kind of in agreement on our number 1 guy. Guys, let us know in the chat, would you take Adam Thielen? And let us know how much you would spend, because, for example, Roland's league, I think what we get like $100 or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So then how much would you spend on an Adam Thielen? Would you kind of do like $20, $10, or are you going like, no, I need this guy on my squad because Mike Will just went down?
Yeah,
so Roland, if you have Mike Will,
that's another good point. People are starting to go down. If you're somebody like me, like in one league, I have Chubb and Mike Williams. Like I'm suffering back-to-back weeks, so I'm looking on the waivers, and that's actually a 10-man league. So I think Thielen's available. I'm gonna be looking to add him, drop Mike Williams, and see what I can do with Thielen. But I did post a question in the chat. Adam Thielen or Garrett Wilson the rest of the year? Who would you rather have? And Josh answered your question, Ron. He's willing to put down about $15 out of that $100 budget. I think that's fair. I mean, I spent $17 on Tank Dell last week, So I think
Oh,
that's
that's a steal this
a
week.
fair offer for Thielen
Oh,
this week if you can get him.
cool.
Next guy,
Emilio, we're gonna get to Stroud. He's actually the third guy. So
nice.
and went down in a percentages rolling. So 54% had Thielen rostered, and then now your guy here has 16%, and then we're gonna go lower.
There we go. So, excuse me, Devin Achan, want to pronounce that right. He's the rookie running back for the Miami Dolphins. Had a lot of hype. If you pay attention to fantasy circles, like on Twitter or listen to any podcast, a lot of those guys were touting Achan, saying, "Look at his 40 times at the scouting combine. I think he ran like a 4.3. All he did was bust out long runs at Texas A&M." So a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people were excited for this home run hitter, especially going into that Miami Dolphins offense. The only problem, and I'm sorry for building it up, but the only problem so far or up until this last week was that he's behind Raheem Mostert and he was behind Wilson. Well, Wilson goes out. He's ends up
Mm-hmm.
behind Mostert, but Mostert is still balling for the most part. Well, last week, granted, it was against the Denver Broncos and they put up 70 points. This guy flat out balled week 3, 18 carries, 203 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 catches, 30 yards, 2 touchdowns, 51 points.
That's a
51
wild, bro.
points. And
From like some guy that I've never heard of.
and
And like,
he
I'm not even gonna lie. I was like, who the hell is this guy that just scored like 2 touchdowns? And it was like impressive
yeah,
touchdowns too, bro. It wasn't just late garbage shit. He was like breaking tackles and running hard and
long runs
oh,
too, showed the speed, and he's only rostered in 16% of leagues. I do want to point out, not trying to pat myself on the back, I do have him on a roster already, but I left him on the bench. 51 points on my bench. I mean,
and
granted, I wasn't going to
wi-
start him because I mean, I have some other guys that are number one on the depth chart or whatever, and I wasn't going to put him in. But now this week, I mean, it's a decision, and for the waiver wire. Ron, are you going all in on him? I know we were talking about, going all in on guys like, Kyron Williams. He ends up being a good running
uh-huh.
back 1 or 2 for you. There's another guy that, you people have gone in for.
I'm
Are you breaking the bank for this guy?
No, I'm definitely not. Reason being is because he's not like a Jerome Ford. Chubb goes down and it's like, oh, obviously Ford's
Yeah,
the guy. And here you still, I mean, let's not forget, dude, Mostert scored 4 touchdowns also. Now are they gonna put up 8 touchdowns the next
no,
game? I
no,
mean,
yeah,
obviously not. But I mean, Mostert is the clear RB1. And then you still have the other guy coming off injury. Now, do you want him on your roster? Clearly you do. I don't know if I'd break the bank, but you might get lucky. Maybe other guys don't need him as much. Maybe somebody forgets. Maybe somebody thinks that it's a fluke because
true.
I mean, like I said, bro, I did not know who this dude was. So I mean, maybe people think it's a fluke. They're not gonna want to waste their money, or a wide receiver went down like Mike Williams, so they're gonna go get an Adam Thielen guy before they're stacked at running back and they don't need a running back, and they say, screw it. I'm not gonna break the bank on a backup running back. Essentially.
So, well, let me ask you this, though. I mean, and I agree with all of what you said. The only thing that I will question is, wouldn't you want to grab Achan for, the inevitable fact that Raheem Mostert gets hurt
Mostert's gonna get
every
hurt.
single
Yeah.
season? I love Raheem Mostert. I'm a Raheem Mostert fan. I end up with him on my rosters more than I should throughout the years. I mean, it's paid
Yeah.
off sometimes, but let me just read this for you. Since 2018, 9 games played, 16, 8, 1, 16, and he's played all 3 in 2023. So very inconsistent. Not a very good chance you're going to get a lot of playing time or a full 16 or 17 for Mostert.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the only reason I would look to add HN probably is just for the fact that Mostert might go down for a game or two, and you have him start. And rookies always tend to ascend like later on in the year and take over
True.
the role. So I would look to spend. I agree. I wouldn't break the bank, but I'd probably go a good 25 to 27 and hope that
All
gets the
right.
job done. Maybe 30, depending on the league. And I'm talking
Okay.
because guys were going 50% on people like Kyron Williams week 1, week 2. So I'm just putting that in
Wow.
perspective in terms of
Mhm.
the percentages. I'd probably go about 25 to 30% of my my salary.
And I think, but before we get to the next guy, we wouldn't want to spend too much time on each guy, but it the offense that he's in,
Yeah,
Roland. I
shit.
mean, you saw It's McDaniel's, right?
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
coach's name.
Mike
The
McDaniel.
young guy. I mean, they're up when you're up 30, bro, and then you're still just nah. We ain't gonna stop. Like we're gonna go for two. We're gonna do this. We're gonna. I mean, if he has that mentality, I mean, don't you want players on on a roster like
Yeah,
that,
I
on
mean,
a team like
they're gonna
that?
keep scoring late into the game, no
Yeah,
matter
they just
if
don't
you're up.
care. He's like, we're gonna put it on you.
Yeah.
So
And he's part of a dynamic offense. I mean, and to your point, I mean, you do want an aggressive coach. Like, I mean, I don't know if you were watching the game last night. You saw Sirianni, the last play of the game, instead of kneeling it, he threw a slant to AJ Brown, completely pointless slant, but he threw a slant to him. So if you're an AJ Brown owner, I mean, you're happy that
yeah,
that happened and that you got
yeah.
Sirianni who's doing crap like that. But you definitely want to be a part of an aggressive, dynamic offense
Mhm.
with a coach like that. So yeah, I'd look to try and get A Chain. Definitely wouldn't break the bank, but if you can add him or A Chan, I'm sorry, if you can add him, I would definitely try to because he's going to be a
Yeah.
guy as bye weeks start to happen. You're going to want to plug in.
Keyword bye
Speaking of
week.
bye weeks, we got CJ Stroud up here, the record-breaking rookie quarterback. Is already broken records just 3 games into his young career. Week 2 against Indy, he really popped for 384 yards, 2 touchdowns. Got 21 points that week. And then week 3, another 20 points, 20 for 30, 280 yards, 2 touchdowns. 11% rostered. Got a matchup against Pitt next week, week 4. And I'm going to say this. I wouldn't necessarily look to add him for week 4, but week 5 is when the bye week season starts. You got guys like Deshaun Watson, Justin Herbert, and Geno Smith going on by to speak of. So if you're one of those owners and you don't already have a backup quarterback, it's probably best to try and nab a guy like CJ Stroud right now
Mhm.
before he pops another game or before somebody picks him up this week. Go ahead and put in your waiver wire for CJ Stroud this week. If you have a guy going on by like week 5 or week 6, like some of the guys I mentioned, Watson, Herbert, and Smith kicking us off in week 5. Ron, are
Yeah.
you with me on CJ Stroud? I know he's on the Texans, but the negative game script works out sometimes for these quarterbacks. What are your thoughts on CJ Stroud?
My first thought is I'm part of the 89% of people out there that don't have to go get or that already have this guy on their roster. I drafted CJ Stroud. I always like a young backup quarterback. I went with Aaron Rodgers in 2 out of my 3 leagues,
Okay,
and we all know what
okay.
happened to Aaron Rodgers. So
You
right
doubled up
away,
on
I'm
quarterback.
fumbling. Yeah, I mean, I'm fumbling, bro. Uh, ACL. So now I'm like, what do I do? So I've been streaming guys like I picked up Danny Dimes that week that he put up 30. I got lucky there. Then I went to Russell Wilson last week, who didn't do great. And I was like hesitant because I had CJ Stroud there, but I still started Daniel Jones. I still started Russell Wilson. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, hey, you know what? Put this guy in. Like you said, though, this week is going to be pretty tough. He's going up against Pittsburgh. We know what that defense is all about, the star players that they have over there. But he's a young guy who, in something we haven't mentioned in keeper leagues, this is somebody who you could have got 15th round, 16th round. He balls out, and next year he's on your keeper squad, and you already have a quarterback, and you don't have to worry. Dual threat is a word that gets tossed around a lot, but he's hasn't shown too much of the running side, Roland, but passing, he's getting better. And I think that people are looking back at the draft, especially Carolina, and saying we might have taken the wrong guy at number 1 because Bryce Young is more like of a pretty face of an organization, somebody that you might like
He
as
was a
your
Heisman
franchise
winner.
player to build up your franchise again. But if you want to have a baller on the field, CJ Stroud was clearly the guy. Carolina missed on him, and hopefully people will not miss on him on the waiver wire.
Yeah, no, I like everything that you said.
Yeah, Edgar.
You gotta go get CJ Stroud. Edgar Diaz is a fan here. He's a Texans fan, right? Shout out to Edgar. You got your quarterback with CJ
Oh,
Stroud. But
before I forget,
go for it.
I
Go.
do not mean to cut you
Yeah, go
off,
for it.
Roland.
Go
Don't
for
forget
it.
what you're going to say. But you brought up Edgar and you brought up Texans fans, right? Guess what your brother said, Edgar, to us in the group chat? He said, CJ Stroud wanted me go want what do you say? Want me to go back to the Texans, baby?
Wow.
So be careful. Big Ben, Big Pap's revenge might be Bulls on parade again if CJ Stroud keeps balling out.
And just looking at his schedule, I know you mentioned Pitt week 4, but he's got Atlanta week 5, week 6. He's got New Orleans, and he's got a bye, Carolina, Tampa, Cincy, Arizona. So the next couple of weeks, if you need to stream him, I mean, week 5 against Atlanta. I mean, that's not a bad. I mean, there's worse matchups to have if you need to stream CJ Stroud week 5. So I would look to pick him up. I think he's going to continue being in a lot of pass first situations. They've been struggling running the ball. I know Damian Pierce popped last year, but hasn't been the same so far. You look at his attempts: 47 in week 2. 30 in week 3 against Jacksonville, because
44 in week 1.
They were scoring pretty easily against Jacks last week. But yeah, CJ Stroud, definitely like what I've seen from the young rookie quarterback, and I would look to add him this week if you can. Looking
And
forward.
A key stat to kind of go off your 44 attempts in week 1 and 47 in week 2, he hasn't thrown a pick all year. I mean, it's been 3 games, but he's faced a Baltimore defense in Baltimore, Jacksonville defense in Jacksonville. So he hasn't thrown any picks. He's fumbled twice, but those are rookie mistakes. Just hang on to the ball, can't carry it around loose like you do in college. But no picks, man, through about over 100 and something attempts, 110, 115 attempts.
And over 900 yards. I know everyone's been throwing out that stat. So for the people that are listening, and thank you first and foremost for listening right now. It's already going to be 9 o'clock at night,
sure.
But he's
one last guy
over 900 yards. He's with names like Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, Andrew Luck, Cam Newton. All these quarterbacks, they were all perennial Pro Bowlers for the most part, and led their teams pretty deep into the playoffs, like Mahomes and Cam Newton. So CJ Stroud in good company so far. I like what I see.
He's the number 12th ranked quarterback, Roland.
That's QB1 territory. That's QB1 territory. So like what we see out of this rookie, try and go add CJ Stroud if you got some upcoming bye weeks for your quarterbacks. And then the last one we have here, Marvin Mims Jr. from Denver. He's a rookie receiver out of Oklahoma. Week 2, he scored a touchdown on 2 catches, 113 yards on 2 targets, 2 for 2. So, I mean, his percentage is pretty good. Week 3, in that blowout against Miami, he caught a couple deep balls, 3 for 73 on 5 targets. And he had a kickoff return for a touchdown. That's how he got his 16 points last week. Only rostered in 9% of leagues, has a favorable matchup against Chicago. Ron, I know you mentioned you like him as a little deep stash, but I will add on. He's clearly, I think he's a deep ball guy in this offense. He's kind of like what they wanted KJ Hamler to be a little bit, the guy from Penn State. But Marvin Mims Jr. has proven that he's truly talented. I like what I've seen. Don't know the volumes there week to week, but Ron, what do you like about this guy?
Yeah, but no, it's the explosiveness in him. And one thing about him is that he does carry the ball as well.
There you go.
He had he had one carry. So you never know, that could turn into a touchdown, but it's the vision, Roland, that after he catches the ball, he's not a guy that's going to want to go out of bounds. He's young. They want to do a lot of yak yards after the catch. We see guys like Jamar Chase like to do it. JJ, these young guys who just want to get those extra yards. And he stretches defenses, just like you said. You have Judy in the slot, you have Slutton, on your slants, your mediocre routes, and this guy is somebody who could take the top out of the defense. Now, Judy, he didn't play week 1. He hasn't really done much.
Yes, no coming back.
Going to your Mosier point or Mostert, whatever. It's aren't you just waiting for Sutton to get hurt? I mean, Broncos wide receivers are going to go down, and this is a guy who you get him now. He might not be valuable to you yet, but the bye week comes around, like Roland said. Injuries are bound to happen, and this is a young, explosive guy. And in this Broncos offense, Russell Wilson has thrown the ball over 300 yards in back-to-back games. The running game isn't as great as they thought. And let's face it, guys, they've been behind in a lot of games, except for that one game when they were in week 2 where they were up by 21 and they came back.
Yeah, they blew it against the Commanders.
They came back on them. But talking about matchups, guess who he has next week? Chicago. I mean, bottom of the barrel team
Yeah,
right
you
here.
could see
And
them. You could see them being a team that busts a coverage,
wants revenge. Yeah.
bust a
Oh yeah.
coverage or something, and you see
Mhm.
Marvin Mims in the back of the back of the end zone with nobody next to him because he just blew the top off and somebody blew a coverage or something. So I like your angle there. I like it.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah, not really much more to say. This is just like get on him early. If you don't have to spend any money on him, obviously don't. He's a guy who you could wake up tomorrow and he could be there. Shit, he could be there Friday or Saturday,
yeah,
and you wouldn't have to
for
waste any
sure.
money on him. But
Yeah.
this is just somebody get on him before somebody else does. The Tank Dell experience, the a chain, whatever it is experience. Somebody deep, deep, deep waiver
Yeah,
wire
like
pickup.
if your league allows like $0 waivers or like a zero, like
Mm.
you don't have to put $1 in and you just put a $0 entry in there if you're playing on Fab. Why not trying to put something for HN, not HN for Mims, especially if you have an injury or you just want to stash them. But before we
Uh,
get to the last part of tonight, that was
what's up,
the
Steve?
fourth and last player that we're gonna go over today. If anybody has any other names in here, please do shout them out. I know what's I think it was Mark shouted out a tight end from Houston. Jordan scored a touchdown. I know another tight end if
Mm.
you're playing the carousel game that's out there. Luke Musgrave, proven to be a pretty
Oh, I saw that.
consistent
Yeah.
target for Green Bay.
I was seeing
Jordan Love
the
likes him.
you probably know the name, the running back for the Bears. Is it
Roshan
Roshan or
Johnson.
something like that?
Yeah.
He was like another name that I saw people picking up. But Steve is in chat, Puro WTBS, Energy Inc., who did these caps. I always wear mine on the show because I
Yeah.
love them so much. The QR code is at the top if you guys want to get any. But if you're local, guys, just text us so that way you won't have to pay shipping. So scan the code, check out our shop. There's a couple hats on there. We still got some shirts. Steven
Shout
Zamora
out
joining us
Steven.
late. Hey, what's up, bro? Edgar was here. Emilio was here. We appreciate everybody watching, man. The show's
Yeah.
almost over.
And yeah,
I think Roland's gonna get one more
and I was
thing.
gonna say the show is almost over, but two Stevens that just logged on. We are gonna recap real
Yeah.
quick. We got the fourth and final player, not as heavy as a waiver lineup as it was the past 2 weeks, but still some pretty good names. We'll recap real quick, just going back.
Do you have the ones from last week,
Yeah,
bro, or no?
I think so. Yeah,
I think they should be
the
on
ones
the.
from last week are pictured.
Yeah.
This is
There we
the
go.
waiver wire lineup from last week. Shaheed, Laporta, Tutu Atwell, Jerome Ford, Tank Dell. Ertz had a quiet game. Reynolds, I don't think did too much, but I mean, 5 out of the 7 guys that we talked about last week had
They went off,
pretty good
cuz
games,
they went
especially in
off.
PPR. So hopefully we have the same success in week 4. And just to recap real quick, these are the 4 guys that we talked about today. Ron, you want to run through them again real quick?
Definitely, brother. Definitely. So we have CJ Stroud from the Texans, Achan, say that correctly,
There you
from the
go.
Dolphins, Adam Thielen, Mr. OG, who is just still out there hanging with the youngsters, man, like a Mims. So those were our 4
Doesn't
players
need to
there.
run the deep
Stroud,
route. Just
Achan.
gets open.
Yeah. Just gets open. I think he had like 14 targets last week, which is nuts, bro. So yeah, those were our 4 players. If you guys pick them up, hopefully they do well for you. If not, they might be available and you don't have to spend any money on them, or not even waste a waiver pick. Like if you're at the top of the list, if you have that number 1 or number 2, waiver, and you're like, chinga, I don't know if I want to waste it this week. Hey, they might still be there, for free. Basically, it's just keep an eye on these guys because they might win you your league. And then finally, the survivor pool, baby. Go over this, Roland, because
What
the upsets last week knocked some people out,
What a
bro.
crazy week. Last week, Ron, do you have the number? It was 12 people that got knocked out. So we had 26
Yeah.
people last week. It was looking like, maybe people would survive a couple weeks before we saw a big knockoff. I read off some stats when we were here on Sunday in terms of like the top survivor picks when Ben and I were here. And some of the top survivor picks, like across America, were the Jaguars, were the Cowboys against the Cardinals. What was the other upset? The Ravens against the Colts.
The
And our
Ravens, yeah.
pool was no different. We had a bunch of guys on the Cowboys, bunch of people on the Jaguars. I was surprised, and a couple of entries on the Ravens. So the strategy of fading Arizona failed 3 weeks in. Ron, what are your thoughts on this past week? Do you still have an entry alive? Or are you
Man,
completely out?
I do. I do. I had two. I lost with Seattle, or we lost with Seattle in week one. And I took San Francisco last week, the Thursday night game. So I was in the clear early. I didn't have
Sweat
any
free.
Sunday letdowns. I was sweat free. So a couple of the guys, not to shout them out in a bad way, but Markey had two entries, and I think it was Dallas and the Ravens. And unfortunately, I think Alex had the same thing. I think he had Dallas and I mean, I'm more than sure, the Ravens or maybe Jacksonville.
Jacksonville, that was the other
But
one. A lot of people
yeah,
thought the Texans were gonna roll over, especially with all those injuries on defense. But Jacksonville probably been one of the bigger disappointments. 3 games in, they got their annual home game coming up in London, so see how they respond.
oh
But
yeah, we have an 8 o'clock game on
yeah,
Sunday,
eight
boys. Do
o'clock game
not
on
forget to
Sunday.
wake up early.
It's Jacksonville versus the other team. Blanking out on who they're playing right now, but
I just saw there was an 8 o'clock game. I don't know who it
so
is.
we'll figure that out. But for the most part, I also went sweat free. I went with the Chiefs, so I can't use them anymore.
Nice.
They blew out the Bears, and I just didn't want to play any games like I did with the Seahawks or like we both did week one.
Yeah,
So
man.
I'm kind of thinking the same thing this week in terms of I'm just looking for a sweat free bet. I saw a couple
Yeah.
people and look, you got to play the game because at the end it is going
Mhm.
to come back and bite the people who blow their big teams early. Like I saw my friend AJ. Shout out AJ for joining the contest. Worked with him for a little while here in San Antonio, but he chose the Patriots. He faded the Jets. So you
Shit.
wouldn't think
Okay.
to go with the Patriots and Survivor, right? But
Yeah.
think about it. You get the Patriots out of the way, right? You don't have to worry about
Yeah.
using them like later on in the season when you're
Mhm.
down all these other teams, and you save like the Cowboys and the
Mhm.
49ers and other teams like that. So definitely have to think like that a little bit. But just looking at the slate this week, there's no games that like present themselves like that. Like, where you can go and fade the Jets. Although they are playing the
Yeah.
Eagles, but that would mean you use a good team, I think. But I'm looking at the 49ers going
Oh,
up.
thank you, Mark. Falcons. I think the Jags are playing the Falcons.
There we
Thanks,
go.
Mark, for that.
So
8 a.m. in London.
So yeah, I'm looking at the 49ers this week. That's probably where I'm headed in terms of I'm just trying to
Mhm.
find a sweat-free bet, and they're playing the Cardinals. I don't think the Cardinals got 2 wins in a row in them.
Oh my God! If they do, that'd be wild, Mark. But you're still in here, Mark, with one entry. So shout out to the guys who only had one entry and are still in. There's 14 left, a $760 pot, and we'll see. I mean, if if the same number of people lose this week that did last week, there's only going to be two people left.
Dude.
So we'll
And,
see.
and that's
Our survival pool might last like 5 weeks, bro.
that's the beautiful thing about Survivor is that it can go like that. Especially, I mean, look, it's not even about being square when you pick these
Yeah,
other teams. It's like you're trying to survive and get to the next week. And who in their right mind thought that the Cardinals were going to go out and beat the Cowboys the way that they did? I mean, as Cowboys
nobody,
fans, we
because
kind of come
nobody
to
picked them in
expect these
Survivor.
performances, but it's still surprising when it happens. And then you got the Ravens against the Colts. Like, who in their right mind
Yeah,
thought that Gardner Minshew was going to go on the road? I think it was raining in that game and
yeah.
beat
Weather was
the
trash.
Ravens on the road.
Hmm.
So, crazy stuff like that happens all the time. So, I mean, I'm sure this week the Cardinals are going to find a way to beat the 49ers, and I'll be out this week. So, we'll just be talking about it from the sidelines. But still alive. Mark, if you're still out there, let us know who you're thinking about taking. Interested to hear what you're going to do with your pick. Ron, are you leaning
Yeah.
any particular way before we sign off tonight?
I'm trying to save the Cowboys for Thanksgiving, but I don't know if we'll even make it there, bro. So the cow so okay, so I'm gonna do it's a Lions Packers Thursday, Patriots Cowboys, Falcons Jags, Dolphins Bills is gonna be a hell of a game. Broncos Bears, Ravens Browns, another tight game. Bengals Titans, Rams Colts, Saints and Bucks, Commanders and Eagles. Maybe the Eagles there. I haven't used them. Vikings Panthers, Steelers Texans, Raiders Chargers. The Chargers, I haven't used the Chargers. And if Jimmy Garoppolo's coming off a concussion, so that might be my play. 49ers, Cardinals, Chiefs, and
Chiefs
Jets.
and Jets. There you go.
So
That's who play the Jets this week.
yeah, Chiefs and Jets. And then the Monday night game is Seattle and New York. So it's either looking like off first glance the Chargers or the Cowboys for me this week.
There, there we go.
And
Chargers. Cowboys.
I think Austin Eckler's coming back.
And good luck
So
to you if you choose the Chargers, because I mean, even if they do end up winning, I'm sure that game's going to be a roller coaster for you. So
I know against the Raiders,
yeah,
bro.
a
God.
team they should probably blow out because, like you said, Jimmy G's a little banged up. But Ron, it's been a fun Tuesday night. I'm glad we were able
Yeah,
to knock
man.
this out. Go through 4 players that we think are going to be pretty impactful some way somehow down the line in fantasy. So we did knock out 4 guys. Talk about some Survivor. Gonna sign off right now, but Ron, any parting shots for the folks? And I know we got some other stuff coming up
Head
this
up.
week.
Yeah, we have the fantasy mailbag is always open. So if you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, any fantasy questions that you have throughout the week, whether it's pickups, drops, streaming somebody, whatever it is, bro, just message us and then we'll talk about it Sunday morning at about 10:30. And that's pretty much it. Fan mail, fan bag, merchandise, and then we actually have a little collaboration coming up. I don't know if I want to talk about it or not, but it's another local podcast here mid-October. Look out for them. It's the 956 ABV podcast. They were super cool, super nice to invite us on their show. They do it out of the landmark in Far. Hopefully you can make it down from that. You can make it down for that, Roland, because we do our show like this, like a like a what do you call it, Roland? Like a fucking
Remote.
street. Yeah, like I'm here in the Valley, Rollins in San Antonio, but they do it live, like in a studio where everybody's together. We've never done that. We've always wanted to do that. So mid-October, that show will be out, and just we appreciate all the support, man. I mean, you guys commenting and watching the show, really does mean a lot. The likes, the comments, and the shares.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
si los quiere, for sure, we'll see you Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday, and probably a
I don't
college show
think.
throughout the week
Oh
with
yeah,
Justin. Justin probably going to
yeah,
knock out another top 10, talk about what happened in
yeah.
this past week in college football. It's a pretty good slate, so a lot to talk about there. And Sunday, we'll be back. So hopefully some of these guys ball out for us. But let's get out of here, Ron.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Good night, everybody. Thank you for watching.